Before we start, that was that the meeting, this last meeting we had, the one that you ran that I wasn't here? I think
That's correct.
Okay, so this one I'll be abstaining for the minutes, that's why I couldn't. Okay.
Unless you want to agree with it.
Yeah. Okay, are we good, Val? All right. We'll call to order the Sylvania Township Board of Zoning Appeals regular meeting. And could we please call, the meeting's called to order, and could we have the roll call, please?
Mr. Boland?
Here.
Mr. Schlachter?
Here.
Mr. Helber?
Here.
Mr. Miller?
Here.
Mr. Hayes?
Here.
Okay. And first, asking if there's a motion to approve the minutes of October 6, 2014, and since it has been a little while, that's the last meeting that we had, and Mr. Hayes, I believe, chaired that meeting. So is there any corrections, changes?
I make a motion to approve the minutes of October 6, 2014.
I'll second. Second.
We did already.
Okay. All right.
I'm sorry, who's second?
I did.
We had a third.
I
We had a third.
didn't hear you.
Yeah.
Mr. Hayes?
Yes.
Mr. Miller?
Yes.
Mr. Boland?
Yes.
Mr. Schlachter?
Yes.
Mr. Helber?
Abstain. Okay, next we have the election of officers for chair and vice chair, and I guess I would entertain a motion for chairman of that appointment. So, but thank you for continuing, letting me continue on for another year. Appreciate it. Next would be establishing the 2015 meeting dates. Are we all good with the first Monday as we've been doing at 4 o'clock? Anybody have any other? Anybody else?
Yep, fine.
Yeah, I think it should be, because now we finally got it, so I think it takes a little while to get in that. So I think we're looking to continue on. Do we actually need a motion on that too? I think we do. Okay, do we have a motion to, for the, set the meetings on the first Monday of the month at 4 p.m.?
Second.
So moved.
So moved. Yep.
Okay, so we have a motion by Mr. Boland and second by Mr. Hayes.
Okay. Mr. Boland?
Yes.
Mr. Hayes?
Yes.
Mr. Schlachter?
Yes.
Mr. Helber?
Yes.
Mr. Miller?
Yes.
Is there any old business? I mean, I don't have any on the agenda. I don't know if anybody has anything. And if not, we do have some, we'll move on to new business. We do have a couple things that this seems to be a good meeting to do this at, since we don't have anything else on the agenda. The first one, and then I'm going to have Daryl speak to it. First, under new business, an acknowledgement of the continuation of a previously approved conditional use for a residential care facility for the property located at 9640 Sylvania Metamora Road. And after that, you'll kind of see why we're doing this one, and there's a little bit of hand-in-hand with number 7, and then I would like to discuss with the board some policy. So if we can maybe start with the one that I just read, item 6 on the agenda. Darrell, if you could fill us in.
Sure. On December 13th, 1999, the Sylvania Township Board of Zoning Appeals granted a conditional use to operate a residential care facility in an A3 agriculture zone district for the above property owned by the Sunset Village Retirement Community. On January 6, 2015, the Sylvania Township Board of Trustees approved a zone change request from A3 agriculture to R2 PUD residential plan unit development for this property in order to allow the applicant to construct senior independent living villas on the property. The approved conditional use remains attached to the property regardless of the zone change. However, the zoning staff contends that for posterity's sake and in the interest of an accurate record trail, the BZA publicly acknowledged that the pre-approved conditional use remains in place post-zone change. The staff has consulted legal counsel on this matter, who concurs with the staff, but asserts that no official hearing or vote is required. A simple acknowledgement by the chair of the BZA on public record is all that is necessary. The board may discuss the matter prior to the public acknowledgement.
Okay, thank you. So if that makes sense, I think and I think it's a really good idea. We've all probably been in that situation that suddenly years down the line the question comes up, well, I think we had approval, I'm not sure if we had approval, check the minutes, and when we talked about it, it just seems to make sense when you can do these kind of things to confirm what was there stays there, even though there's a zoning change.
Right.
And it's on the record, and this way, everybody knows where they stand. So if there's any other comments or discussion, and if not, I guess it's just an acknowledgement on the record. If there is none, then I guess we just want to go on the record saying that the previously approved conditional use for that residential care facility is confirmed in place even with the zoning change.
Right.
That makes sense. Okay. Is that something we take a vote on?
No.
Okay. So
Lots of
unless there's
time
any
to
objections?
did it.
Okay, I just want to see if there's any objection, clarifications, all right, we're just acknowledging it for the record.
Right.
Okay,
Just to keep that record trail
right. All right.
following through.
Very good. The last item, and I don't know, certainly don't have to decide anything today, but I think it's a good opportunity to have at least some discussion and something going forward to think about. Also that Darrell had sort of brought to our attention, and that was that, when we give variances and conditional uses and that, they follow the property and not the user, and there's actually something potentially coming up down the line related to that. So something goes in place and isn't followed through, and literally years can go by, and especially coming out of the last economy, people in good faith, had every intention of doing something, and the project got to a screeching halt, and then it could come back up with all different users and all different. So one of the things that, should there be something to think about, should there be some time limits on some of these variances and conditional uses? Again, it just simply would mean with that, it can lapse, or the idea that, I guess somebody's, if there's a notification system, that they would need to come back in and, if they need it, and if they don't, then maybe they're okay with it lapsing, versus, it just being there. And, sometimes we deal with situations we have, like with the car dealerships, where there might be a resident nearby, and you'll say, well, when you bought that, you knew there was a car dealership there, or whatever it is. But if somebody looks and sees a zoning next to a piece of property, but, how are they going to know that there's an ongoing, they may be prepared for that, but if there's a variance that could be kind of substantial, how are they supposed to know that that's, all of a sudden somebody's acting on it years later? I don't know, how fair is that to somebody, and how far is somebody supposed to do, look into that? So that's what I guess I'm putting out there, we're putting out there for discussion, that, again, I don't know that we have to make a decision today, but I think, the board, I assume the trustees also, this is something that's, is this starting with us, or have they given that?
No, it's starting here. I did discuss it with trustee Mahoney, and, he feels it's a good idea. I figured tonight we just kind of discuss it, get everybody's thoughts, then next month maybe come back and
Right.
get something a little more solid. And then if we decide to go ahead with something, then it would go through the process of an amendment to the resolution, so it would have to go through the Lucas County Plan Commission, our zoning commission, and then the trustees. And I figured at least get the ball rolling and see what everybody
Actually, it would actually be a code amendment at some point.
What's the benefits of that? I understand some of the downfall, but again, using the, agenda item number 6, what would they would have had to go through the whole process again.
If it lapsed.
If it lapsed. What kind of time period are we thinking for expiration?
That's a really good question.
I have an opinion on that, too, when he's done.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know that we have, we can all toss out it could be 18 months, could be 2 years, could be a year, but, somewhere, I'm thinking in that kind of range if you're going to do it. Yeah, you want to give them, there's certainly legitimate reasons things can just get delayed. The process can take a long time. But, so it's not, I don't think we're looking to squeeze anybody yet.
No.
Some of these, the stuff we're talking about, one of the ones we've been talking, was it 6 years? At least, if it was
The
long ago.
hotel?
Yeah.
Yeah, 7 years. He got the
7,
variance back in December of '07,
See,
and the economy tanked
Yeah.
in '08. And
I think we have to put a time period on it, number one. I think the other thing we ought to put into that is when that variance is completed, okay? It is that person's responsibility to notify the zoning that it's done, okay? That it came to pass. And the reason I bring this up, and I'm not picking on Kistler, but I'm going to tell it like it is. They took that lot across the street, okay? Now, remember that's the lot with the big variance in the height, and I haven't figured out how they're going to do that. I see they got some stuff over there, some drainage stuff there now, and this has been on the books for, I can't tell you.
Wow.
Hell, I thought he just got his job a year ago, and, you know, so time goes by. But I noticed that fence is a wooden fence. And if I'm correct, and I may not be correct, and we may look at it, but I'm a stickler on, you know, the Taylor Cadillac fence. And that's the fence that I told them we needed to put up there next to that resident. First of all, there's a fence up there they put up, but it's not the fence that I thought we were getting. And I don't know if we have to go back to that and see what we specified. We may have not specified anything. And I thought you and I talked about that, Darrell, at one time, but maybe we didn't. It's immaterial now, but I think that we should have some teeth where they come in and say, hey, this is done, and, you know, and put some teeth in it where they have to come in and notify you. Because there's nobody that goes out and looks at this.
All right.
You get a variance to put up a 40 by 60 pole barn, and you're kind of back in there. You know, next thing you know, it's a 40 by 150 pole barn, and nobody ever blinks an eye because nobody inspects it. You know, I don't mean to make you the inspector, but if we're going to give a variance or a change, and they're going to do it, I think they need to live up to it. Just like this Kistler. I may all be all wrong and barking up the wrong tree, but this is an example. If he didn't put the right fence up, and he's got the variance, then he needs to do something about it. Because we told the people that were there, that's what was going to happen.
Well, you would think that the people that are living there would be complaining about it, you know. That would be a way that you think would come to a height, you know, you would know about it. But, you know, I don't think there's any issue with Darrell going back and looking and then, you know, send them a letter telling them, hey, you haven't fulfilled your BZA, you know, request.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, there is teeth in that if anybody brings it up and it is on the minutes and they don't comply, you know. Nobody wants to particularly see them have to spend money twice on the fence, but I guess I don't want that to be that loophole of, well, if you wait long enough, nobody involved on the board probably will remember, they won't be the same people, everybody forgets.
Or the next guy will come along and he'll say, well, you didn't make him do it, you know.
Oh, right, and we have seen some of that, and so, yeah, I think that one of the concerns being that we got it approved, nobody ever looks at it anyway, so time passes, kind of do what you want, you know. Yeah, I mean, it's almost like, you know, any permit, there's still an inspection, you know, that someone's going to come by and close it out.
If you don't use your building permit after so many months, you got to buy another one.
Right, and the same thing with our zoning permits. They have a one-year limit to be enacted upon. I did a little bit of research and calling around. Springfield Township does have a one-year limit on conditional uses. They become invalid if not enacted upon. And then just poking around various townships in Ohio for variances, it's actually not that unusual. Quite a few of them do have a one-year limit if it becomes invalid if it's not acted upon. You know, and I don't know if 1 year is maybe too short, or, you know, and that's something we can discuss too.
Well, you could put 1 year on it, but maybe write in there and say, hey, after 1 year, you gotta, you know, you just need to come before the board or let the board know that, hey, I've had this problem getting permits or something, and nothing's changed, and then we'll give you another year, you know. I mean, that kind of stuff happens, but to let it go on forever and ever, right, I don't think that's right either.
And, yeah, regarding conditional uses, you know, a few months ago, the board approved the conditional use to,
Bankrupt. That's what you're talking about?
yeah, Margie and Baron Black for Flieger's hardware store to operate a landscape business there. You know, they decided not to purchase that property. Well, that conditional use is still hanging out there attached to that property. Theoretically, somebody could come along 20 years from now and start a landscape business there, as long as they don't compost in the rear yard. So, you know,
So why is that a problem, though?
Because maybe the situation doesn't, and I'm answering in my way, maybe the situation doesn't warrant to have a nursery there now. You know, we approved to have a nursery with these conditions, okay? Now it's 10 years down, and the whole area around has changed.
Things
for some
change,
reason.
yeah.
And that's kind of what I was saying, so somebody's doing a development, they look and say, what is that zone, what's it been used for, okay, that's fine, and not knowing that there's this, variance that is kind of substantially changes what could go in there. And I think one of the protections is if somebody comes in, whether it's a year or 2 year, whatever's decided, yeah, and even if it's some extent they come in and say, here's the status, I'm about ready to go, I just need a little, and it's stamped, it's also a nice time to almost remind them, we're going to approve with the same conditions as a reminder. The fence and this, are you still on board with all of that? And that's kind of a nice time to be able to say, just as a reminder, you've got all these things here, and if you're coming back, or even if it's a different user, we're okay with this, but we're, it's still the same conditions. So I certainly am in favor in some kind of time limit. I think the amount of time we can all discuss and, think about, but I think some limit is protection for the people.
We give you enough, Darrell, to put something together and throw it at us again?
Yeah, we can do it that way, or we can, when we meet next month, kind of come together on something. If you guys, I don't know if you want time to think about this, or whatever, but kind of sounds like everybody's in agreement that there should be some kind
I think a year is a good time frame. If there's a process where you can come in and get a renewal, and I think the onus is going to be on you to track to see if it happened in a year, right?
Right.
Or somebody, and then, keeping track of the time span and when it would expire. So we have to have a process in place.
Right, well, and the variance would be easy enough because they'd have to come and get their zoning permit for whatever it is they're constructing. And that's the thing too, we can have a time limit on variance but not on conditional use, or vice versa, or one could be 1 year, the other could be 3 years or 5 years. We don't necessarily have to do this all as one thing. We can kind of separate the two of them if that makes a difference to anybody.
Personally, I would like to think about it a little bit. I think the biggest thing is the time frame.
Right. I guess I would too. I guess what my thinking is I've seen other parts around the state and country that have a little bit more control. It would assume they have more control and more things put in place. And, just like the signage, we've went through many years here of problems with signage and fences and car dealerships because we have a lot of them. And I think we pretty much got it down how we want this and how we want that. And, I think we need these controls to keep it, to try and, have some continuity, I guess the word I'm looking for a little bit.
That makes sense. And I think when we grant these going forward, if we do put time limits, I think it's something we'll want. I would like always to make a point to let the people know that, when they're here before us, to let them know. Reminder, you've got X amount of time.
Right,
and
right.
certainly what that means is that it's getting close and you don't think you're going to come back in.
Yeah, and if
Make sure you see.
whatever we decide, we'll just rework the application form.
Right, so it's right in
with
there.
some
That's a good idea.
statement about the time limit on that.
Okay.
You think there needs to be a different time frame between a conditional use and a variance?
Good question. I was trying to figure out why you would.
I've been thinking of examples in my mind, and I didn't get an idea that there should be anything different.
I would think keeping it as simple as possible.
Yeah, so you don't confuse, right? Right, they just know a time and that applies across the board. Unless there is, I was thinking the same thing. I didn't know if one is more apt to be utilized, probably being consistent might help. Okay. Anything else?
Feedback on that,
Yeah, any thoughts?
why they would be.
Well, if one would be longer, I would think it would be, and this is just my opinion, but the variance would be longer. Just because conditional use, typically, most of our conditional uses are for home occupation. The person's ready to do that right away. If they're not going to do it in a year, they're probably not going to do it. Whereas a variance, like in the case of the hotel that got the variances back in '07, and then the economy tanked in '08, things, granted, that was an unusual circumstance, but, maybe a year, for the contractors, for the developers to get everything lined up, maybe a year isn't necessarily enough time. Maybe look at 2 or 3 years. But I think if there's going to be a difference, I think the conditional use should be the shorter time period. But whatever the board feels is.
I think one of the things that we have to realize here, just how important that is. Now think about this a minute. They want to build all these apartments down here, okay, and they had a deal, and this is before I think any of us were here, all right? But they had that in place. As long as they didn't change the drawing, bang, you got them. It came right at a time when all the services were going, all the townships were looking for money, and everybody around us, and even us, for police, fire, the cost of doing that. Not to stop the development, but maybe to take a look at it again, But once you have this in that piece of paper, like you say, you can take it 7, 8 years, Next thing you got it going up next to something that you didn't want it to, That's all.
Right.
I'm not trying to hold them back, I just want to make sure they know when the time frame is at least.
But it's true, that I think just the development process takes longer than ever. So, that is a good point on the variance, that they may be moving along. It doesn't take much, but a few hurdles to slow it up.
We do have a 5-year limit for our PUDs as far as to be acted upon, so I don't know if that fits into any of this or not, but it's something to think about.
I guess we would ask maybe everybody to remember to think on this when we meet our next meeting. Is there know of anything for next month yet?
Yeah, we've got.
Oh, we did? Okay,
Yep.
so we'll have a meeting next month, and maybe we can come in and try to get a little bit more specific.
Although one of us won't be here.
I won't be here.
Okay,
I already told them I was going to tell you guys to.
okay. Next month's meeting. All right.
You going on vacation again?
Again, I'm on a vacation. I have 6 Saturdays and a Sunday in my life. That's what it is. That's my life. So I don't really have any work days, so I guess I'm on vacation all the time. Weekends kind of time off a little bit,
So vacations work.
Right.
I understand.
Why do you have a Sunday, for church?
Well, it's on paper, but the reason I have that is so you can keep track of the weeks.
Oh,
Because the paper's bigger, see? And then it's Sunday. Well, then, you're supposed to meet somebody for lunch on Monday, then that's coming up.
But you don't have any Mondays.
Now that Al is done rubbing his schedule into all of our faces, is there any other new business? If not, I'll move for adjournment, and then we can follow up with any more discussions off the record. Any other business? If not, is there a motion for adjournment?
so moved.
Second.
Mr. Boland?
Yes.
Mr. Miller?
Yes.
Mr. Slaughter?
Yes?
Mr. Hilber?
Yes.
Mr. Hayes?
Yes.
All right, we are adjourned.
And I want to thank everybody also for being able to reschedule for tonight.
Yeah.
And then also the quick response I got on the meeting that we don't need to have, but for 5 minutes, it looked like we were going to have a special meeting on February 23rd, and you guys were really quick on responding to that one. So.
What did they end up doing? They did, they're going for a zoning change?
No, they're looking, it's a place that sells playground equipment, and they were looking at that property, trying to think what's there now. Val, is it a doctor's office or insurance office? It's on Holland, Sylvania, right across from West
It
Acre.
used to be an insurance office.
It's Zone C4 office, and so to put it retail in, they would need to be rezoned to C2. But they wanted to get in there like March 1st.